Hello, and thank you for tuning into Gail Scott Key's Entertainment Now with the lovely Christina Millsaps. Christina and I would be incredibly grateful if you watch this special interview on YouTube, that you also please click like and subscribe, as you will be so happy that you did. You want to know why? You want to know why? Hey, Christina, you remember the hit TV show Shaft? You know the hit theme song?
Of course. I mean, we're too young to remember, but I've seen it. Just kidding.
Well, maybe
We just
I
had
was
to just
too, but I was
claim
doing
that,
my
okay?
best.
But yes, of course.
Well, everybody loved that voice, Isaac Hayes. And the lady said, shut your mouth. But guess what? We're not shutting our mouth. Oh, no, we're not. We are going to be opening up our mouth because we are so excited and cannot believe for the first time here, thanks to SC Productions, we have a special guest in the house. And folks, she is amazing. The apple doesn't fall too far from the tree, as Heather Hayes is the daughter to the legendary performer Isaac Hayes, and she is taking time out of her schedule to join Christina and myself. Now, she's also the creator of Heather Hayes Experience, and she's a singer, songwriter, and performer who has been compared to them all, the legends. And let me tell you, having her here right now is beyond honor, beyond it. This is the first time on my show, and I'm super excited, as she has performed with some of the most greatest artists like Beyonce, Michael Jackson. So we're going to get into it with her right now, and we welcome to the show Heather Hayes. Heather, I can't tell you how extraordinarily happy and thrilled we are to have you on the show.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited.
Oh, we are thrilled. Now, I know, being the daughter of such a legendary performer, as I'm speaking, of course, about your father, the late, great Isaac Hayes, I have to ask, and I know you've probably been asked this question 1,000 million times, but what was it like being in that household and having him as your father?
I just think that people are shocked. It's like anybody else's dad, because I think that when you're born into that situation, you don't really realize that they're famous. Not really, especially when
Mhm.
you're younger, you have no idea. So he was your regular dad. Like, did you do your homework? I'm gonna put you on punishment. He was a prankster. He loved to cook. He loved video games. He loved to watch movies. So I mean, it was your regular household, until I got about preteen age, and then that's when I realized, oh, okay, something's a little different here,
Yes.
because everything we experience, especially when you're born into something, it's normal. And so when you start having friends and going over friends' houses and meeting their families and what does your parents do or what does your father, you're like, okay, that yeah, mine's a little different. So then you kind of recognize it then. But he was really
That was
normal.
so cool. If you open up the door and he'd sing, what you want? Princess. I'm like, oh my goodness. You must have been the most popular home, for birthday parties, having your father
Oh
sing.
well, yeah. My place had older sisters too, so my place was definitely the parties. I had Halloween parties at my house. My
Oh,
sisters would have parties. They're older than me, so I would crash them when I was like 9 and 10, and they'd kick me out. But
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, it was. But my dad was relatively a private person, so a lot of times we couldn't have parties and stuff at our home. He'd have gatherings every now and then for his band, his musicians and stuff like that. But he was a homebody, really. I mean, I guess when you work like that and you're traveling around people all the time, you like to come home, you like to watch movies, play video games, and cook. That was his thing. So
Yeah.
absolutely.
Like
Absolutely.
recharging, I guess, right?
yes,
Needing to recharge to go out and be able to have that kind of energy with the crowd.
yeah, definitely.
Well, this part people may not know. We've touched a little bit on all the music and the songs, and we're going to totally circle back around to that. But I'm kind of fangirling over this other thing with you that people may not know about your dancing and choreography with some of the most major stars like Michael Jackson, Beyonce, Queen Bee, who is currently on the Renaissance tour, Brian McKnight, Sean P. Diddy Combs. I mean, what was this like? As like being able to perform with them and choreographing for them and just being a part of their show like that.
I think because I went to a performing arts school, so from the time I was about 13 years old, that was pretty much all I did.
Mm.
The James Brown thing came about really like weird because I was in a performing arts school. I had a dance teacher. I was a singer, and I was considered a singer that could dance.
Okay.
My so my majority of my things that I did, I was the lead singer, but they were like, "Oh, you can dance, like you can." So I started taking some classes, and so that particular choreography had a dance company. He got hired to choreograph for James Brown. So he was like, "I need you guys to come to Augusta and do this video with me." So we did a video, shot the video, great. Went back home to college. I was at Georgia State at the time. Like, oh my God, this is so boring because I literally went to Fame, the school Fame, and I'm now in college and I'm bored out of my mind.
Yeah.
But my mom was like, look, you're going to go to college or you're going to pursue your career, which is, so I was like, I don't know what I'm going to do right now. So I'm going to go to college. And then he called and said, you know, he wants 2 dancers, like hip hop is starting to be all the rage. He wants 2 dancers. I don't know what's going to happen. They want me to choreograph because they had other dancers there that were from LA. He was like, they want me to choreograph for them and bring some dancers with me. So I'm going to bring, it was me and another friend. And we literally went down there and he loved us. And he was like, okay, so you're not going back home. Your first show is at Radio City Music Hall and we'll just buy you all new clothes. I was like, okay, I didn't have a hat for this. So we rehearsed for like 2 weeks. And then I just stayed and I was with him for like 6 years. So that was a huge learning lesson. Like when you learn from someone like that, the lessons are just plentiful. And then it was so cool because my dad, when I got the job, I've always been concerned about being hired or being recognized because of who my father was. So when I got the job, I used my mother's maiden name.
Yes.
So I would say the first month, 2 or 3 months, he had no idea that that was my father.
Because her maiden name is Jackson, right?
No, my maiden name is Harley.
I mean,
My
your
mom-
mom's? Oh, for
Mom. So yeah, so he had no idea. And one of my older sister's friends, who
Yep.
actually went to school with my sister, she saw me. She came to a James Brown concert and she was friends with one of the background singers. And she was like, that looks like my friend's little sister. Well, they told on me. And so he calls me in his dressing room like, why didn't you tell me your daddy was Isaac? And I was like, frankly, because I wanted you to choose me because of my talent. And from that point on, we had such a special relationship. He was like a second dad to me. He would push me beyond my limits, force me to sing in front of 10,000 people out of nowhere. Like just a lot of things that I learned about grinding. I learned about doing it because you love it, being on time. Like everything is not, you're not always in the best positions, but the show must go on. Like I learned all those things from him. And then from that, I just consistently worked with people like that, like Michael Jackson, incredible work ethic. We're going to do it until it gets done right. Beyonce, beautiful person. She rehearsed as long as we did. She wasn't like the type that would come in 2 and 3 hours late. She was there sometimes before we were to rehearse. And she was just super cool. And I saw the Renaissance tour, but the last tour she was on, she came and I got to go back and see her. I hadn't seen her in years and we chatted it up for a brief moment. Sweet person. She deserves all the success, but I just learned bits and pieces from all of these people. And I think that my biggest takeaway, and I think what people need to understand is these people reach these levels of success for a reason. And you don't see the behind the scenes, but they are who they are and where they are for a very specific reason. And that goes for my dad too. So it's perfection or close to perfection as you can get. So, those are my lessons from them. And I'm so incredibly grateful for it.
I'm so thrilled to hear you talk about that. And of course, I'm sure with the Renaissance tour, she has Blue Ivy out there and she's just killing it,
Yeah.
and talk about, so we're seeing how children grow up into the industry and there's been some pros, there's been some cons. I so appreciate the fact and respect the fact you kept it low key because you wanted to be recognized for your talents. And a lot of the stars that we talk to, pretty much have the same attitude because it's very hard. People not seeing you outside of your father, but you've done amazing things yourself. Let's talk about, the Heather Hayes experience, the band. And I have to have my co-host tell you what she said when she listened to it, because I said, Heather has to hear this. What did you say when you played her music, Christina?
Okay. First of all, before I tell you that part where I was so excited, are you in Georgia? Like, are you from Georgia? Okay, because I'm in Georgia.
So I'm in Atlanta, like outside of Atlanta. I was born in Memphis, but I went to school here. I lived in Buckhead. I went to North Atlanta. So that's where I grew up.
Okay, so I'm in Atlanta now, and I've been here a while. So when you kept saying that, I was like, oh my gosh, is she here? Can we go see her perform? Okay, so I was watching all the videos and I was driving in my car and I was like, this is perfect. Now I can hear the music too. And I was like, where can I go to have this party? And I said, I watched all the videos, and part of it, you guys were performing at a wedding, and one of the brides said, we planned our whole wedding around the date that the band was available. And I said, when I get married again, if I was going to have a big wedding, and maybe now that I know you're close, then I would love to do the same thing, because it was just, I mean, I was like, I may need to pull over and have a dance party. Like, it was so, you guys were all so incredible. All the singers, all the musicians, the dancing, like, it was so fun. It was phenomenal.
Thank you.
I love that when she said that for you, because
And it's so funny because she, I think I did that wedding like 11 years ago, and she called me last year. And she works for a school, DeKalb County Schools, and they were having a big function. And she was like, she said, again, we have to make sure you're available. And I was like, oh my God, you remember me? And she was like, of course I remember you. And we performed for that function for her too.
Okay,
So I
I'm
did
totally
a lot.
looking this up after the show. I'm checking in the schedules.
I think the thing is that I don't think a lot of people, I feel like you really have to take your craft and your gift seriously, because
yes,
it really contributes to people in a way I think a lot of times us as entertainers, we're really unaware of, because we're really consumed with sounding good, looking good, but you are really giving something to someone. And I don't care what level you're on. I don't care if you're singing at a bar. I don't care if you're singing at a wedding. I don't care if you're at, Phillips Arena. You're really giving something to someone. And I think a lot of times we lose sight of that, and you forget that you're creating memories for these people. A lot of times we think they're not going to remember, or it's just a party. And I have had numerous occasions like that. I did a New Year's Eve party in 2022, and one of their families got married in like 2011. And he was like, we said if we ever got married, we had to have it. And I'm like, oh, like it was 12 years ago. Like, you literally remember me from that. But it means that we were impactful. And I think a lot of times, because you're blessed with a gift, you don't really realize that you are really impacting people, and you're making people feel good and maybe forget about the problems and enjoy that particular moment. And so going into the wedding industry and the private, wedding band industry and the corporate band industry, I really did something a little different, and kind of got in trouble when I first started, because I had been in other people's bands, and I just kind of felt like it's so like mundane and boring. Like, I get it, but why not make this a performance? Like, why not make this a memory? You know what I mean? And so I started changing costumes in the middle. I would, create choreography, and people were like, oh my God, you look like you're in a video. And I'm like, well, exactly. That's what I wanted. I wanted to look like that.
Yes,
And
that's
so I really think that, and you don't think that you're impacting things, because I started in this industry probably in 2005, like not with my own band, but that's when I was kind of like, well, if I do it, I have to do it the way I'm going to do it, and collectively bring in all the experiences that I have had. And all my experiences have been James Brown, Michael Jackson, Arrested Development, Beyonce, Puffy, Brian McKnight, like I could go on and on. Those were my experiences. My dad, like watching people put shows together. And I'm like, if we're going to be up here, why not make it an experience? Otherwise, what is the point in doing it, right?
yes.
And so that was my mindset in creating the Heather Hayes experience. I also, in my industry, there's very few female-owned bands, which is ridiculous to me. So few in the industry. I'm like, you guys, it's like 2010. Like, how is that possible? And so that was a learning curve, wrangling mostly male musicians. Like, okay, now, but I was like, y'all, I learned from the best. I've been on the road with James Brown, so I've learned some lessons. You guys don't try me.
Right.
I'm not a pushover, not a pushover. So, and so a lot of brides would pick us because they're like, it's girl power. It's so many women in the front being powerful and impactful. And so that was my mindset in creating that, and really taking all of my incredibly, incredible experiences from the greats and bringing it to that. And I really try to bring that in every single thing that I do.
You're truly blessed. And it's such a charmed life to have those type of experiences from legendary artists that we as fans will look at and be like so amazed. And to have you here with us to share about that, I mean, we're just in awe, because I couldn't imagine what it's like being Heather Hayes and having your father, Isaac Hayes, who's that voice. There will never be another voice like that. Let me just tell you. That voice,
That was the voice that we were scared to death of. Like,
that was born because of that voice. I just want to tell you.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, it's such an incredible voice, but I love what you are saying because we also have young listeners and viewers who are trying to get into the industry. And please, Heather, help me out on this because they're going to, YouTube. And there's like a lot of artists who I heard one last night who she was singing, but there are others who just figure it's a great way to just get out there instead of going through what you've gone through. What is your advice to young artists who are truly really want to capture the essence of being in the industry as you? What is your advice for them?
work on your craft. You have to work on your craft because this is a tough industry. It's a lot of no's. It's a bunch of no's. Like, and you really have to have a sense of yourself. And I don't know, everybody doesn't have to whatever you believe in. I feel like you have to have some type of spiritual base,
Yes.
because this industry can shake you. I didn't love it at first, when I got into it professionally. And my dad was kind of like, no, this is what you want to do. This is it. And in a lot of ways, unfortunately, I feel like it changed my dad. Not the dad that I knew, but my mom, like, early on. And when you reach that level of success, it's a lot of negativity that comes with it. And I think that people need to understand that this is a double-sided coin. You know what I mean? There's good, there's bad. It's feast, it's famine. Like, it's a lot of ups and downs. And I think ultimately, if you love what you're doing and you really are focused on your craft, you just have to ride the wave. Because honestly, if you don't love it, you won't continue to do this. You just wouldn't. Like, I don't, who would put themselves through it, quite frankly. And so that's always, my, advice to young performers. And I also think that the internet and social media apps have really given people the idea that certain things are easy, and they are simply not. And that's across the board. I hate when I see people, oh, I could be this if I had, and I'm like, no, like, you see all the pretty pictures, you see all the videos, but you're not seeing the work that goes behind it. You're not. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of sacrifice.
You mean I shouldn't take my hairbrush and think I can like blow the wind and go, whoop?
Yeah, no. Not you want longevity. Absolutely not. No. Like, and it's like, the thing about it is I think for me, my dad, because my brother, who is an Isaac Hayes III, he was a producer. He started in the industry. My dad was very clear. People need to understand that he was like, first of all, he told my mom, they're spoiled brats. I'm not buying any cars. I'm not doing any of that. And now thinking back, I'm like, yeah, we were. But I think his notion was they have to want to do it, right? They have to want to do it. They will not survive. So there were just things that he would give us a helping hand, but he was not giving any handouts. So you really had to prove to him that this is what you wanted to do in order for him to assist you in any way. Wow. He was like, you have to figure it out. And I remember, I tell people this story, and I was like, my mom used to always tell me, people don't do things unless they absolutely have to. And I had left James Brown, and I was like, that was some heavy touring. Like, you did not have a life. You were like in Italy, for 6 weeks, and you were in Germany. Like, it was all over the place. And I just didn't know if I wanted to continue that. And I kept telling my dad, well, I think I want a band. I want to start a band. But during the time, I really wasn't working. So I was trying to figure out what I was wanting to do. And I would always call and ask him for money. Dad, can I have $1,000? Dad, can I have this? Dad, my car needs to be fixed. Can I have this? I was doing like videos. Like, I remember I got to work with like co-choreographed videos and stuff. Yeah. And one of the last times I called him, he was like, I thought you were starting a band. And I was like, well, I want to. And he said, you know what? No one's going to do it for you. You're going to have to do it. He said, so this is your last check. The bank is closed. I was like, wow. Because I think the thing is, when you don't even realize it, in the back of your mind, you have a safety net. Yes. And I was blessed enough to know I could call and ask for $5,000, and I would sneak and pay up my little rent for a while, and I have to do, and take the dancing jobs. But I really wasn't on a path of, what am I going to do? And he said, the bank is closed and you're going to have to figure it out. And literally, that was in January. I put my band together, rehearsed it, and had my first gig in March. So I was like, I'm not getting any more money. Like, I got to figure it out. Like, You know, it was taking me too long to figure out what I wanted to do. So then I brought the band to Memphis where he was. We performed for him. He was like, and he would tell you if it sucked, he was like, you're not gonna embarrass me. So he was like, you got a good thing. This is a good thing. Keep going. And that's how I started. That's literally how I started.
I love that. I love that because my father's shut off his bank account when I was 18. So I was like, can I just, he's like, nope, nope, nope. And now he was buying shoes, I'm like, all right.
Yeah. I just think you have the kids need to understand, the younger generation needs to understand this is hard work. You got to really, really want to do it. You got to be able wanting to starve for it if you wanted to do it. That's the thing.
I love that because it couldn't come better than from you who have lived this journey and continue to it, because I'm sure others will look at you and say, oh my goodness, she's beautiful. I want to be like that. But hear the message of what Heather is saying to you. It doesn't go like that. You have to pay your dues. And that can be a hard thing for them to understand. And I love how your father also, it makes sense because that's like old school, right? It's like, you're not going to get the keys to the car, buy your own car. I had to do my own. I had to save up $500 and the brakes went, but my dad was in the car and I was like, oh my goodness, I did not plan that. Not at all. But you feel a sense of pride and they feel like they've done something remarkable for your life. And look at what happened. You evolved on having the Heather Hayes experience, working with legendary performers and also being pretty much compared to these legendary artists because you are your own. And I love that. I love that.
Yeah. And it builds so much. What you're saying is character and integrity. Yes. And that produces the grit to stay and keep going after what it is that you want to go after. And so this is a message that is unique, and we don't hear a lot of people say those kinds of things and how they were kind of like raised up with it, and just the determination and that character that you are like also passing along with the work ethic. And speaking about being unique, we have just learned that you are part of something that's the first National R&B Day coming up in February, at the end of February. So we wanted to know what's your involvement with that and why is that so important to you?
Well, Star called me. So my involvement really is to just go into different spaces and really talk about R&B, the history of R&B, how important it is that we do not lose sight of what R&B contributed to music. Because a lot of people are like, is R&B dead based upon the climate of the music industry, which I don't think that it is, because I think that you really can get so much music in so many different spaces now. I think more so now you really have to go and look for it, unfortunately. But R&B is not dead. And so it's just a matter of those who come from R&B, whether it be, the parents or just yourselves, of how I grew up listening to, Aretha Franklin, Chaka Khan, Mariah Carey, Whitney Houston, those are heavy R&B, artists. And you don't see a plethora of them now, but there's still R&B artists out there. And I see a little, emergence of some of that in mainstream again, but they just called and asked, since they knew that of course, my lineage, but that I was really heavily into R&B. I've sung background for plenty of people on albums. I love music in general. And so, it's just a day to commemorate that in the history of what it did for music. And so that's what it is. And so we're going to be going around to different media spaces, talking about it, posting about it, doing different interviews about it, because I think it's really important. Because I'd seen a lot of posts like, is R&B dead? And I'm like, no. Like, I went to see Usher in Vegas. Like, I was like, this is the first summer that I wasn't like killing myself working. Like, I went to Vegas, I saw Beyonce. Like, I went to see a whole bunch of shows, like, because I love music. Like, I love Tamia, Shantae Moore, Usher, Beyonce. These are all, they come from R&B. Yeah. And so when I was asked to take part in that, I was like, unequivocally, you have no problem. I definitely want to take part in it. So can't wait.
I know that our time can go by so quick, which stinks for us, but that just means we have to have you back, Heather. And before we do, we want to, again, for the Heather Hayes experience, please let us know the social platforms that we can go to visit to keep up with you, and also for those who are viewing the show, so that way we are connected with you.
Well, okay, you can do Heather Hayes Experience on IG and on Facebook, and just if you follow me, Heather Hayes, on Facebook and IG. I have a public show coming up this Saturday I'm paying tribute to Janet Jackson and Jody Watley at this place called St. James Live here in Atlanta. October the 7th. It's this Saturday. And so we've been rehearsing for that. Like, this is bringing me back to my childhood because I was obsessed with Janet and Jody Watley. Like, I wore the little puffy skirts and everything.
Yes.
Those are kids. So I'm doing that this Saturday coming up. And so anything else I'll post. Sometimes it's private, sometimes it's not. But I have some other things that I'm working on, some new music. Also, when it'll be holiday soon, make sure you check out the Mistletoe and Me. I covered the song of my dad's. I redid it in my own version. It's a video out. People love it every Christmas. It's played on a lot of stations for Christmas music. And so, make sure you download that for your Christmas parties and stuff like that during the holidays. And just follow me on all my social media platforms, Heather Hayes.
Let me tell you, not only will we follow you, but we would love to have you back for the holidays so that we can get everybody in that mood and just letting them know we are honored. And I see Christina's eyes twinkling because when she said you're performing Saturday, she's like,
I'm going to find out how to get the tickets and whatever. I was supposed to be going out of town that day, but I don't know. I may have to not do that.
Well, if you can't make it, I do shows at St. James Live periodically. Probably going to do a show called Daughters of Legacy at St. James Live in the next 3 or 4 months. And that is the daughters of Millie Jackson, Betty Wright, Janicia Ben, Ann Nesby, and Ruth Pointer. We have a show called Daughters of Legacy. And so we perform our parents' songs and some of our own original songs and stuff. And we have a song out also called You Better Know by the Daughters of Legacy. You can download it on all social media platforms. The Mistletoe and Me as well is on all social media platforms. Download that too.
Okay. Heather, well, I'm definitely going to be meeting you in person at some point, Heather, for sure.
Yes.
Let's just fighting over this.
Yes. And Gail, that means you have to come down here. I'm coming up there for the fall leaves and you have to come to Atlanta.
We're going to be there. We're going to be there to promote. Absolutely. Heather, we can't tell you what a joy. We want to thank SC Productions for just allowing us this opportunity, as it has been so wonderful. We'd love to have you back, so we hope that we will. And of course, we're going to make sure that we have on our Facebook page as well all of the links that Heather has mentioned and all the places where you can stay connected, because we ask that you please do. Heather, from the bottom of our heart, thank you. Thank
you guys so much. You guys have an awesome week, the rest of your week and weekend.
Thank you. Thank you, Heather.
So much. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.